the matter with that cat there?
Must be full of reefer.
Full of reefers?
Yeah, man.
You mean that cat's high?
Sailing.
Sailing?
Lightly.
We now wander off the beaten path with an update from the Reefer Reporter.
Welcome to the Reefer Reporters, your audio digest of Canadian and international cannabis news. This week, Kim Cooper and myself, Al Graham, will talk about and discuss the news that came out during the week of January the 30th to February the 5th, 2018. Hi Kim, how you doing?
I'm not doing too good this week, Al. I'm down with a cold. I got an evil bug that's been hanging around for the last 6 days or so.
Oh, it's never good being sick, and when you're already sick, getting a cold on top of all that's never good.
No, it's not. But, you know, the show must go on. The news cycle doesn't stop, and people gotta know. And I'm still here, and the news show will continue.
Yes, and talking about news, we got lots of articles today. We're going to be going to Toronto to see what's going on there with the police force, as well as we're going to travel across the country. We're going to visit BC, Saskatchewan. We find out some polling information, as well as the government is looking for information.
Yeah, starting off the show, I think, in Toronto, aren't we?
Yes, we are. Well, actually, we're going to start off the show with a little discussion of a friend of ours.
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Recent news in the cannabis community. A very dear friend of the show, Mr. Sam Mallace, has taken extremely ill. It's more than just an illness. The news release was just released yesterday by their publicist to let the general public in on what's been going on for the last week or so.
Yeah, I've seen some of the posts on Facebook where people have been, wishing Sam well, and I really didn't understand what was going on, and so it's good to see this post. You want to tell us what's up?
Yeah, sure. A post was put out by Mike, their publicist. I've been in touch with Wilhelmine, Sam's wife and family, throughout this ordeal. It's been very horrible and very trying on everybody, especially Sam. Sam was en route from Vancouver to Toronto to do one of his stops on his book tour. He was scheduled to appear at the Hot Box Cafe in Toronto with Abby Roach. On his flight, at some point during the flight, Sam suffered a stroke. Nobody was aware that the stroke had taken place. They had just assumed that he was asleep in his seat. After the plane landed, he was found after everybody had already disembarked and Sam was still remained seated. He was rushed to hospital. He is recovering. He's slowly getting better every day, but the situation is tentative at best. I'm going to quote the press release now for you from Mike to give everybody details that are being released so far. On January the 27th, while flying from Vancouver to Toronto for a book signing, Sam suffered a severe stroke and was found unconscious on the plane. After a week of uncertainty, his family is now ready to announce that Sam is on the winding road to recovery. We will be posting update dates on Sam's Facebook page, and they encourage also for you to leave well wishes and messages for Sam and his family at that location.
Yeah, that's right. If you've got a message for Sam, go to the Great Cannabis Conspiracy Facebook wall or Sam's wall and send him a message, and they'll make sure that it gets to him.
Absolutely, and Sam can use all the encouragement that he can get right now. Cannabis community, I hope, will rally around Sam during this time and of his need. He's been a great friend to many and has helped so many patients over the years on their road to recovery. I hope that we see an outpouring of support for this man during his time of need.
Yeah, and something like this, like it's totally unexpected. People don't know what's going to happen, and when he was out for that long, that's a long time to go without the proper medication. And let's hope that everything turns out for the best for Sam.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's my understanding that he is beginning to get some movement. He's starting to walk a little bit. He's beginning to eat on his own somewhat. So things are progressing, but they're progressing slowly, and it will be a very long road for Sam coming back.
Yes, it will. Yeah, that's for sure. Okay, Kim, let's go from Sam's news to some news happening in the city of Toronto.
Yeah, the city of Toronto. City of Toronto cops or something else, aren't they?
They sure are. What's going on here? We got an article here from CBC News telling us that the Toronto police allegedly ate some cannabis edibles while they were on duty.
Yeah, they're on duty. These people, we discussed this a little bit last week. These officers are carrying weapons. They're in possession of firearms, and they're getting intoxicated on the job. This, while on the face of it, is hysterical to think of two cops calling for help because they were too high on pot. But when you go deeper into it, the ramifications are just huge.
Oh, big time. There's places like, for example, in Germany and some of the states down in the USA where they're for cannabis patients who use, medical marijuana in order to, alleviate their conditions. They're being forbidden from owning guns. And here these guys are in possession of high-profile weapons. And they're on duty. They're in a police car. They're just down the road from their station.
Yeah, in a police car on duty with stolen drugs, no less. The property that they ate was property of the police force. It was in the possession of the Metropolitan Police Department from a raid. So this property was confiscated from a local dispensary and was being held for trial. These officers helped themselves to that product and just continued on to get intoxicated while on the job and wound up needing to call for some assistance while on the job. Another officer that tended to assist these officers wound up becoming injured with a head injury because she slipped and fell on the ice while trying to assist the officers that were, hallucinating.
As of the time of this article, they say that there was no charges had been laid against the officers, but that was impending investigation. I'm sure we'll hear about that down the road, but there's obviously some charges here. Like, they've been going around charging people left and right here in the province as well as across the country, and now they got some officers who are tampering with evidence and consuming it while they're on work. This better be more than just some slap on the wrist from the tribunal, but yet, no criminal charges. That wouldn't be right.
Oh, absolutely. They must face criminal charges for their actions, and this public safety is an issue here. The theft is an issue here. Yep. Breach of trust. Yeah,
exactly. Now let's touch on another part of all this case, and that's the fact that the officers reported that they were having hallucinations from their edibles. What do you think? What's the chances of this?
Well, hallucinations, that can be a wide-ranging term that people use. Hallucination can be something to the effect of the officer was dizzy and not seeing correctly, and, his own imagination got carried away from him because he was over-consumed something that he was not used to consuming. That can happen with almost anything that we ingest that can cause mind-altering effects such as cannabis if you're not used to them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, it says here they've talked to a professor from the John Hopkins Medicine in Baltimore, and he says that folks tend to be more prone to have hallucinations if they have a family history of psychosis.
Well, there you go, right? Toronto police officers probably have a family history of psychosis in order for this to be happening, according to the doctor. But what I really love is the counter to that, and that's a Windsor, Ontario doctor, sadly enough, that says that cannabis in its raw form would not ever cause these hallucinations, and that he questions whether or not there was cutting agents used in these particular products, such as salvia, K2, or spice, that could have caused the hallucination effects.
this is product that has come from a dispensary, or very likely from a dispensary, by the report that was put out. And I can't see these K2s and Salvia and stuff being in a medical dispensary that's being sold to the people, the general patients. That just doesn't make sense to me. Like, if these two are hallucinating from all this, where's everybody else that's suffering? Where are all the other people who are dealing with hallucinations?
Yeah, there hasn't been a single incident reported where any kind of hallucinogen effect, or extra drug was placed into any product sold at any dispensary. Not ever. Not quietly in the community, not publicly, not anywhere. It simply does not occur. These dispensaries are dealing mainly for patients. Yes, some of them deal to the general public now, but they originally started for patients. And even the ones that deal with the general public, they all get mainly their supply from the same retail market. Most of these places are actual companies that are operating, with product labels and product company brand names and everything else, and it's sold online and across the country. These products do not contain hallucinogens, and to me, this is a cop-out on the police's department's part, 100%.
And no pun intended there on the cop-out.
Yeah.
I see here that they use this as a very good reason why the federal government should take it slow and easy on allowing edibles.
But you can almost predict that this is where this was going to go. More enforcement for regular people that have been consuming safely on a regular basis for centuries. We need more enforcement. When it's our cops are the ones that we can't trust, something is backwards here.
Okay, Kim, we got about 2 or 3 minutes till we go to our music break. And we're going to stay with the Toronto Police Force for this next article. It's not really cannabis, but it is drug-related.
It is, and it goes to exactly our conversation on the last two discussions regarding the Toronto Police Force. And, they're not being able to be trusted with drugs.
Yeah, well, it seems that one of their officers was caught with cocaine in his wallet and has been demoted for this. And I was thinking, demoted? Where's...
Yeah. Yeah.
Where's the rest?
Former drug squad and guns and gang officer unit, and he pled guilty to misconduct after a small amount of cocaine was found in his wallet at a Scarborough courthouse. Now, this guy took cocaine into the courthouse, and then he lost his wallet with the coke in there. So somebody found the wallet, and while looking for the person's name to return the wallet to, they found the cocaine. Now, This guy wasn't even charged for possession of cocaine. He wasn't, fired from the job or anything. He's demoted for this act. What would happen to you and I if we took cocaine into a courthouse?
Well, I know we wouldn't get an absolute discharge, I can tell you that. You'd be stuck with a criminal record for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. The entire conduct of the Toronto Police Force right at this time, it's so hypocritical. They've got the guys that are on the drugs and gang squad, and they're bringing cocaine into the courthouse. Now, was it personal use is another question that people are asking, or was he bringing it in there to possibly plant on someone? That's another question that's being up in the air. And it's not a ridiculous statement at this time, considering the facts in this case, that we cannot trust our Toronto police.
Very interesting what's going on there in the city. Just so you know, he's got to do some random drug testing for a year, and then he's scot-free. Well, Kim, I think it's time for us to take that music break.
It sure is.
Yeah, and today we're going to have some music featuring the Barney Begard Sextet. All right, and we'll be back on the other side. See you shortly.
Boy, she's really frantic, the wildest chick in town. She blows her gauge, flies in a rage, sweet marijuana brown. In her victory garden, the seeds grow all around. She plants, you dig, she's flipped her wig.
Okay, Kim, well, now we've discussed what's going on in the city of Toronto and their police force. I think it's time for us to maybe get a little bit of room between us and them and head out west. What do you think?
Sounds good. We're going to talk a little bit about the First Nations out in the Saskatchewan area.
Ah, and what's up with them?
Well, they don't feel that they're being consulted enough by the local government there and the provincial government. It's FSIN Second Vice Chief David Pratt said that they feel like the provinces is not adequately consulting them and they're not involved enough in the process from the get-go for them to formulate, laws for their particular places.
Yeah, I see here in this article on Global News that the government decided that they're going to put them in 40 municipalities as far as the stores and First Nation communities with a population of over 2,500 people. So it sounds like they didn't discuss with them in at all which communities they may want these things in.
Yeah, so I mean, First Nations communities, they're basically autonomous. You know, they get to right to say what can go there and what can't go there. They even have their own police forces. And the government in the province has decided where these places are going to go. And some of them are on First Nations communities. And they're like, well, hey, you didn't even talk to us yet. Don't you think you should?
Yeah, I would think so. And I see here their lawyer, Don Worm, I can't pronounce his name, unfortunately. He says that there clearly is an obligation and a duty to consult with the province when engaged in certain activities, and that might otherwise impact on treaty or Aboriginal rights. And something like this could most certainly impact those.
Absolutely. And then there's the flip side of the coin. Some of the smaller First Nations communities are also crying out about this and saying, you didn't consult with us either. And, we don't have anything that's anywhere near us because our communities are too small and they don't meet the criteria for your brand opening for how many people need to live in that area. So many of those communities are being left out and not considered, forcing, some of those First Nation communities to drive several hundred kilometers before they can get to a local shop.
Yeah, that's this. They show one example here of an hour that some people have to drive an hour to get to the closest store.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's two sides to every coin, but either way, it shows the lack of consultation that's going on with our First Nations community in Saskatchewan for sure. And I think this is happening, across the country in provinces, every province we have.
Yeah, it does. It seems to be that way because I know our mutual friend Tim, he's talked about it in the past. And if they're going on a native land, then they should be talking with the native people about what they want. Like they say, treaty rights and who's got jurisdiction
jurisdiction. Yeah,
I know, tongue twister. Sorry.
We're both having a hard time today.
They're gonna they should go by the laws of the land, and other than that, they're gonna find themselves in court, obviously.
Yep, absolutely. And back to court we go. It seems almost, I'm even going to drop the almost. It seems every aspect of cannabis legalization in Canada winds up in the courts, whether it be for medicinal or for recreational use.
Yes, yeah, I completely agree with you. It seems the governments over the years obviously have been putting up a solid wall, and, it's like Humpty Dumpty, one brick here and there has slowly taken down that wall, and while it's not everybody is not happy yet, I'm sure we're all happy to see the wall start crumbling down.
Absolutely, for sure.
All right, talking about coming down.
Yes, lots is coming down in the pot stock world, that's for sure.
Yes, it seems to be a big sell-off. Like there's a bunch of money being lost here.
Yeah, not sure what it's all being attributed to. Many say that it's the instability in the U.S. market that's happening, but big sell-off, tumbles 19%.
Yes, some of them, some of it, the market leaders believe that because it's been doubled in value, and that things have ballooned, gotten too big, and they're not worth what they're saying it's worth, and so things are being adjusted.
Yep, the big stock bubble in Canada has finally come to an end,
Yeah.
and it has burst.
That's the
You
Canadian.
know, I mean,
That's the Canada Cannabis Index that plunged 19%. It says that some of the largest producers, including Canopy and Aurora, tumbled more than 40% from the January's highs.
yeah,
That sounds
people are panicking. People are panicking because they're losing their money right now, says, the BCMI cannabis report said in an email. Stocks are a bear market territory. Nobody even knows what's going to happen. They could rise again in a heartbeat, and that is basically what's expected. People think that, they may be in a slump now, but once recreational cannabis comes to Canada, then the stocks will go up once again.
Yeah, and they may not be as high as they have been, or they may not get as high as they have been for the rest of this year. But yeah, they're not going to get wiped off the face of the earth here. But they have dropped, and I'm sure a lot of people did lose some money, and that's why people are panicking.
Yeah, and as soon as one person loses money, the panic sets in, and everybody sells.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
So yes, it happens in the weed stock market as well. You're going to play the stock market, it goes up and down.
Yeah. Yes. Well, Kim, let's continue our trip out to the West Coast, and we see a friend of ours has been speaking up.
Yeah, Mr. Kurt Tusaw, a friend of the show, a wonderful lawyer and friend to all of the cannabis community. Very outspoken lawyer for the cause, for sure. He feels that, things could maybe take a turn in the future and maybe have lawsuits over pot instead of busts, and that could be a big step forward for BC and all of Canada.
Yes, yeah, it could be. Time will tell, though.
Yeah, he's saying basically, let civil litigation take care of this. It could be a big step forward. Doors aren't being kicked in. People aren't being handcuffed or thrown in cages and facing the prospect of criminal sanction anymore, because we're using civil litigation. And if police departments across the country allow that to go forward and allow us to work it out in the courts and give us time to do that, perhaps it would be a really good step in the right direction to help move this along.
Yeah, well, in the end, there's going to be some form of regulation.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
Yeah, and why not work together on it instead of slamming people in jail for helping other sick people while you allow people to take coke to court off of the discharge? Like,
yeah, that's right.
I'm just beside myself here.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I am too. They get an absolute discharge, and we go to jail and lose our homes and jobs and children and everything else. I mean, it's crazy. The whole thing is just insanity. And and that's basically what Mr. Tusaw is just talking about here. We can always quibble about the rules and the regulations down the road. Ultimately, as long as we have some kind of a rule, the rest of it can be worked out in the court system. But having police departments giving us the time and the rope to do that would be most helpful in moving this forward in a peaceful manner.
Oh, for sure. Sure would. Some cooperation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So good job from the Times Colonist Sun there, out of the Times Colonist News Online. Richard Watt spoke to a lawyer, Kurt Tusaw.
Yes, it's always Kirk has been very prominent in the news, and it's good to see that he speaks up and people listen to what he has to say. He's been very successful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's obviously made a lot of changes, court cases that he's been battling in. So.
Oh, for sure. Right up to the Supreme Court of Canada.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Kim, we've got 5 more minutes till our next music break. And let's see here. We are heading back to the east side of the country. We're going to head into Ontario here with a survey from it's a forum poll from Forum Research, and has to do with edibles and what the people of the province here think about edibles and where they should be consumed, how they could be consumed, where, should be in public, so on and so forth. So let's just do a quick rundown of some of the results that they found.
Yeah, sounds great, Al. I'm surprised actually by some of these results, pleasantly so.
Yeah, they got more than half, 52%, say they approve the sale of cannabis edibles such as cookies, bars, and drinks, whereas only a third, 37%, say that they disapprove, which is
Yeah, licensed edible lounges, our opinions are basically split, but most of them are leaning towards disapproval. But I think education would change that as well.
Yeah, I would think so, because right now I can't see, even though they, like you and I and many others in the community know that lounge has been around for 15 to 20 years, there's a lot of people out there in the regular part of society who aren't aware of these things. And if cannabis got a bad name in their household, and a location to allow them to consume it, I could see that falling under the terrible category again, right?
Absolutely. Prime example of that was when on the Pace Radio show last week with our guest Ted Smith. He operates the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club, and next door to a condominium building. People were saying no, they didn't want it there, and were screaming about it. And they stopped once they realized it had existed for 22 years and they didn't even know about it. So, once you realize these things are there already and you just weren't aware, it changes your opinion.
It sure does, exactly. Now, I see here where they talk about, we've discussed in the past about being able to buy a gram or a couple grams while you're at the lounge. Now, here there's a bit of an opinion as far as buying edibles at a lounge. And they say that 45% believe products can be consumed. They disapprove of them eating edibles at a lounge. 45%. That's almost half the people.
Yeah.
And another third say that they strongly disagree. So there's like almost 80% of the people disagree to some point of being able to have a brownie or a cookie at a lounge. Like, hello?
Yeah, more education needs to be had out there for sure. It seems people are more accepting already of marijuana smoking at festivals and places like that than they are about edibles. And I think it goes to education. We've had a push about, people consuming cannabis, and they're more aware of that as a medicine now. But we haven't had that push on the edible side yet.
No, we haven't. And then, there's a story that we discussed there earlier. It doesn't help with the situation, but, people got to realize that these were police officers that more than likely overconsumed. And,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the horror stories like that.
I'm all for, marijuana, cannabis sales at festivals and stuff. I see lots of events have beer tents.
Absolutely. If there's a beer tent or a bar, then there should be allowed to be a cannabis sales place that you can consume your product at the space that you've purchased it. Much the same as you do at a bar or any other rec venue. If you don't want to have the sale, then at least have a designated area. And it seems that over half the population agrees with that stand.
I'd say so, yeah. Yeah, it's good to have a bit of an opinion and get an idea where people fall on these things right now. And it'll be interesting to see where they turn out in the end. Okay, Kim, it's that time again. Time for us to take another music break, and we'll continue the news on the other side.
Sounds good, Al.
Okay, Kim, we've gone from a poll on what the people think about lounges and stuff, a bit of information there, and now we're going on to a different style poll. Not really a poll. I'm going to say it's more about the government is collecting information. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a survey that's being done by Crowdsourcing Cannabis. Statistic Canada needs people's help into collecting some data. Now, they're not going to be asking you for your name, and they're not going to collect any data, personal data on you. This is just to give them an idea on pricing and usage.
Yes, exactly. And it's really simple. You just price in how much you paid, for how much, what city you're in, why did you purchase it? And they list a graph of the different prices across the country.
Yeah, when you're done, you get to figure out, where your prices basically fall in the grand scheme of things according to the data they've collected. I really like that they've included a category for quality as well, so you can let them know what you're paying for low quality, medium quality, or high quality cannabis.
Yes. Well, to give people a bit of an idea on what cannabis per gram costs across the country, British Columbia, $6.94 per gram.
On average, they say that's what the price is. Yeah, the highest price, of course, goes to the territories at $9.52 a gram on average. Now, people are submitting their prices index in there that buy it, by the ounce. So if you buy an ounce for whatever it is, $200, $250, depending on where you live, possibly more, possibly less. But you're putting that in there. So that will affect the price. So you're not actually getting a comprehensive what it costs to buy an actual gram.
Correct, yes. You're more getting an average this way. But it also shows when you reflect back to what for example, here in Ontario, they're talking about $10 a gram as a price. Before taxes are applied, and if you can get an average gram out there for $7, why are you going to go down to the store and spend $12 after taxes?
Exactly. Now, I'm wondering if StatsCan has been hired to gather this information in order to help provinces more accurately set the price for their provincially sold cannabis products. It would make sense to do it in this manner because really, if people can go out to their local person that they use currently, whether that be a dispensary or their grower or their gardener or the guy up the road, if you can get it for $250 an ounce or $200 an ounce, you're not going to pay $10 a gram to the government.
No, you're going to be paying under $7.
Exactly.
$200.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So,
but it's interesting to see the different prices across the country.
For sure. I encourage everybody to go and take the survey and let the government know what we're paying for our cannabis products, in real life here, so that they can get an idea, that their price scheme that might be outrageous.
Yes, yeah, and what they're trying to accomplish may not be accomplished because they're going to be overpriced, and they'll find that, just like they do in other places, that they're going to have to lower those taxes. There was, as we mentioned in the previous show, was it 23% in the province of Ontario? So, and depending on what the province's tax rate is, other provinces are probably looking at the same or more or less.
Absolutely. So, high pricing to start with, add the 23% tax on, it's doomed to fail. So hopefully the government's seeing that and is going to do something about it and alter their pricing scheme.
Yeah, let's hope so. Fingers crossed. Okay, talking about
Government.
See, punning stuff. Let's see. We've got our next story here. You've got your as we've seen every week. You've got a Northernly article.
I do. This week I'm bringing an article to us from the CBC. It's a show called Up North. Now, this is an audio podcast that's done every week by the CBC. It's available online. I'll post the link on our site as well for you so you can get it. Earlier in last week, They had a show on, and it was involved a Northern Ontario professor, Dr. Marsh. He's a professor of clinical sciences in the Northern Ontario School of Medicine, and he spoke to their journalists there about legalization of all drugs and possibly going the route of Portugal.
Yes, I see that he's been dealing with working in addiction medicine for over 20 years. So this isn't a guy who's just fresh out of school. He's well educated on this. I'm sure he knows of Gator Mates. He's a very strong advocate when it comes to addiction and everything. Yeah, why not? This I'm sure surprises a lot of people. And recently in the news, this had sort of come out, and the Liberals were denying that they were going to legalize all drugs. And they were only talking about cannabis. And then all of a sudden, this is something that they're going to discuss as a possibility of, going through the convention and seeing if this is what the grassroots wants become policy.
Yeah, well, according to Dr. Marsh, more and more doctors are looking at the stats in places like Portugal that are coming out, and they're very encouraged by what they see, and they're looking at the evidence and they're looking at the science in a different light. When you look at it and you take the prohibition stance away and you try and examine just the science, it makes sense. The doctor was quoted in saying when I listened to the newscast, he said, in Portugal, they had 30 deaths due to overdose last year.
30 for the whole country, for the whole year.
For the whole year. We can experience that in Ontario in one bad weekend.
Yeah. Like thousands across the country are dying of these. And this is one way that Portugal has found to obviously make major change, directing people into they're not really drug courses, I think, in the American down in the U.S. sense of things, but it directs people to counseling.
It's rehab in their way. It's not at all in the way that North America is known to do rehab. They look at it as a health issue, not a law issue. They provide people with the supplies they need to do whatever it is. If it's heroin or whatever, you get, clean needles, all of that, a place to go, clean medicine. You can get, the substance will be prescribed. So it's not got additives. It's not been cut with anything that could possibly harm you. And the entire time through the process, you're given guidance, you're given counseling, you're given encouragement, you're given life-sustaining treatments, access to education, all of these things that would make you want to turn your life around and stop using this substance. And then they carry on that by helping you get on your feet. It's a health issue rather than a legal issue.
Oh, for sure. Major health issue. You got to think, you look at Insight out there in British Columbia, where it's an opportunity to, people who are addicted to drugs can go in there and be supervised, get information, get treatment if they desire, and by allowing that, it saved a lot of lives at that end. So I can see how something that covers countrywide would be a huge success. It'd be shocking to a lot of people. There's no doubt about that. Society isn't raising their hands and saying let's decriminalize all drugs. There is support, but it's nothing near the cannabis issue.
Society in North America, sadly, we're just not there yet in the mindset. Most people are still very afraid of the whole aspect. But once again, that's fear and propaganda and lack of proper education on facts.
Yeah, and you got to start the conversation somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right,
yeah,
Kim.
For sure. And from there, I think we're gonna talk. We talked a little bit about prime ministers and things that they're doing in other countries. We should talk a little bit about maybe our prime minister for a minute.
Yes. We could.
Yeah.
It's because he's consumed cannabis.
He has.
Yeah.
He has, and he's in the news once again. Mr. Justin Trudeau held a town hall recently in Winnipeg, Manitoba. A fan of
Right,
the
he
show,
did,
a friend
didn't
of the
he?
show. Yeah, a friend of the show was in attendance at that meeting.
Yes, Stephen Stairs was there, and he was able to get a question in.
Yeah, and what a great question it was. Stephen Stairs, great friend of the show, been on the show, interviewed on the show in the past, doing a lot for Winnipeg and for Manitoba in general. He stood up and he asked, Prime Minister Trudeau questions about legalization and whether or not people will be pardoned pending legalization for previous drug crimes, and whether or not that would include trafficking and other sorts of charges like that.
Yeah, he talked about how it could save lives when he talked to the Prime Minister about that. And yeah, because a lot of people for simple possession are being held back from, maybe a loan or a quality job because of the fact that they have a simple possession charge for maybe 3 or 4 joints on their record.
Yeah. I mean, and it's outrageous. Prime Minister Trudeau's response was less than what I would have hoped from him, for sure. He basically re-spouted the rhetoric about what about the children and saving lives, strict rules and strict regulation, and that's how we're going to beat it, and ultimately said that they would possibly look at pardoning people for simple possession, but they were not considering pardons for anyone convicted of trafficking.
Yeah, which is really sad when you look at. There's a lot of people who are very good in the cannabis community that have lots of knowledge that they could share with the company, but yet because they got busted for learning all that knowledge, they won't be able to use it in a legal sense.
And I think it's a direct jab at anybody in this country that has gone the step forward and operated a dispensary for patients in this country. A large portion of the dispensaries that have operated have been busted. They've been raided. The owners, the people that work there, they are all charged with trafficking. So you are eliminating that entire sector of people from the legal market with this stance.
Yes, they are. And you look at other places like in California, I believe, is where they invited the people to get involved. They were the ones that they went to, the people who had been busted, because they're the ones that,
Yeah, absolutely. Trudeau went on to state, stuff like there is no black market alcohol, where we have to go after the pushers in the stairwells that sell joints. And, organized crime is the thing that's in weed, and that's what we're looking to stamp out. Well, I've got a few things. Number one, there is a black market alcohol trade, Mr. Trudeau. I'm sorry to tell you, but there is a very large and flourishing black market or alcohol trade, right down to local municipalities that have their local bootlegger that supplies everybody when the liquor store is closed.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is a flourishing black market in alcohol. And pushers in stairwells don't sell joints.
No,
okay?
They don't.
Yeah. No, they don't. And organized crime in the cannabis community, it just doesn't exist. There's not enough money for organized crime. Pot is not being shipped anymore in cargo containers shaped like carburetors from Mexico and from Jamaica. That's when organized crime was involved. That is no longer the case. It's home growers now.
Okay, Kim, we've run out of time.
All right, then.
Okay, that's our Reefer Report for January 29th to February the 5th, 2018. And in closing, we'd like to say thank you for listening to our Cannabis News podcast. And if you enjoyed it, please share it with those you love and those you don't. And as we depart, here is Barney Bigard Sextet and their song, Sweet Marijuana Brown.
hottest chick in town. She blows her gauge, flies in a rage, sweet marijuana brown. In her victory garden, the seeds grow all around. She plants, you dig, she's flipped her wig, sweet marijuana brown. She don't know where she's going, she don't care where she's been, but every time you take her out, she's bound to take you in. Boy, that gal means trouble, you ought to put her down. Get hip, take care, look out, beware of sweet marijuana brown. She don't know where she's going, she don't care where she's been, but every time you take her out, she's bound to take you in. Boy, that gal means trouble, you ought to put her down. Get help, take care, look out, beware of sweet marijuana brown.